evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. I see some. Oh, did our guest just leave? Bear with us, please. This is a new platform for all of us, and I just want to say thank you all for those that are joining, and also for the repeaters. Um, as many of you I've shared, I'm in a season of transition, and in my season of transition, God has placed in my heart to share with others what I have learned during that transition season. And oh, there you go, Jewel. Okay, welcome back. It's all good.
Thank
So let's
you.
just gonna roll through it. Okay, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and for the viewers that have come on tonight. So I do see some repeaters that came on from last week and the previous week. So the topic that we're going to talk about today is elevating your mindset. So if this is your first episode joining us today, the theme is called Suffer Well. And that was dropped in my spirit towards the end of the summer. And basically, I had to ask God what that meant. And He was sharing with me that that means that no matter what type of hardships or difficulties you may be facing, you can find rest, you can find peace, you can find gratitude in that moment of transition, because it can be very challenging, but you are not alone. And I wanted to bring um, ladies that have helped me on my journey, whether directly or indirectly. And I remember for our guest speaker today, we have Jewel Guys. Everyone, let's just give her a shout and say hello. Thank you for joining us today, Jewel.
Hey, I
So
appreciate being here.
yes, yes. And I'm so grateful that you are here. And I remember when this idea dropped in my spirit back in July, I didn't even have like the clarity yet. And I remember speaking to you, and you were like, Miata, wait until you get a little bit more clarity and then come on and share a little bit more detail. So I did that. This is like end of September, early October. And
Mhm.
I want to share how we've met. Okay. So I want to start us off by sharing how we've met. And for the ladies that's on the call, welcome. And please drop in the chat where you're calling from. I know some of you are calling in from Maryland, but we do have some out of staters. So please let us know where you joining us from. Okay. Good evening, Brienne. Thank you for joining. All right. So I met our guest speaker for today, Jewel, way back a few years ago, back in maybe 2014 at an open mic in Baltimore. But it was really in 2016 that I met her at an intimate setting. She was sharing her story. And I remember I started following you then, Jewel. And um, and I remember sharing with you in the DMs, I was like, I hope our paths cross again. And it surely
Mhm.
did in 2019. I was in a space in my life where I was tired. Like I was extremely tired, but then I realized that was actually the start of my transition season. And I was depleted, exhausted, you know, I was burnt out and I needed help. I remember sitting in my classroom and I was like, God, send some help my way. And I reached out to you and you were my coach. Like at that time, like I
Mhm.
needed everything. I needed prayer, I needed meditation, I needed Reiki. And you provided all of those services for me. And I just want to say thank you. And you have been on my journey since 2019 and 2020. You were the photographer for my event. And then in 2021, many of you on the call may know that I published a faith-based self-help book, which includes my journey as well. And you were the visual person behind the scenes and you helped me out. So I really just want to say thank you so much for walking along the journey with me. And for those that's also on the call, I shared on my social media page that I felt the shift to go into yoga teacher training to become a certified yoga instructor. And it started last year this time. So in January of 2024, in the first month, we were just building community and we had to explore what community meant to us. Last week we had an episode where we were talking about grief and different forms of loss. And one of my forms of grief was a loss of community. And I remember the guest that was leading the discussion on exploring community. She said, don't forget about those that you have to seek professionally. You know, so oftentimes when we think about community, we just think about like our church or our family and friends, but it can be those that we reach out to professionally for professional help, and there's nothing wrong in that. There's no shame in that. So thank you for being a part of my community. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, girl, hey. So, Jewel, you wear many hats. You are a healer, a transformational life and relationship coach. You are an author and speaker. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about you on how you became who you are today.
Oh, that's a great.
We can't hear you. No. No.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, we can hear you now. So it just went back on mute again. I'm sorry. Thank you all for your patience.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We see your mouth moving, but we don't hear you at the moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you all for your patience and all of this technology. Everything is connected. Wow. So my journey started, let's just start here. A journey is eternal until you get out of here. Like in the body, you're always on a journey. And there are just like different roads that you are taking. I in 2016, about almost a year after I got married, I left corporate. I was an electrical engineer, and I left that space because I felt like, one, I was in this position that I was curious about, but it didn't feel like fully my path. And so I would find myself going to work and not being happy. I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. And I just started saying that, okay, I'm not going to be in engineering for a long time. I'm actually going to go and explore all of the things that I really want to do. And so, as you talked about before, that's what led me into photography. That's what led me into videography and talking to people and hearing them share their own stories, not knowing at the moment that it was my own encouragement to share my own. So I started doing that. In my marriage, I started really uncovering who I was, my early childhood traumas, my traumas with men and relationships. And inside of that, I realized, one, I always had a knack for talking to people and holding space for people. They will always come to me for advice. They will always ask me about, what should I do? You're a good listener. Can you listen to this and give me some feedback? So it was probably about in 2019 that I got my coaching certification, which is a year after I also wrote my second book, which is Dear Black Men, which is a therapeutic prompt journal for Black men to basically uncover the feelings that they've been suppressing for a very long time. So literally, me leaving my job, me getting married, and having my husband as a constant mirror really led me into coaching and really holding space more intentionally for people and diving more into what makes us tick. Why do we do the things that we do? Really big on psychology and neuroscience, because neuroscience is what really helped me get out of a depression. That was a serious cycle for me for a good portion of my life. And understanding that our thoughts are like the foundation of everything. Whatever that you are thinking spurns into a belief system. If you keep thinking it, spurns into your actions, your behaviors, right? Your way of life. And so as I put my life under a microscope, because I'm always my first client, I put my life under a microscope. I started picking apart things that I began to see. And it really helped me to understand, like, we literally have the power to change our very existence. And sometimes we're just sitting in a space where we feel like, oh, it's somebody else's fault, or it's this situation's fault. And literally, I tell my clients and myself first that everything is happening through you. So if there's a problem, check around, check your thoughts, check your feelings. What are your beliefs around these different situations? And so beginning to live from that space was really like the beginning of freedom for me. So coming into being a coach was really just about me unpacking my own stuff and then being really good at helping other people do the same.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing. And I can really relate with you as far as when it comes to being your first client, you know. So when I started working with you back in 2019, like you have done so much to help me on my journey of transitioning, right?
Mhm.
And I had a scarcity defeated mindset, and during this journey, it shifted from a winning to a I'm sorry, it shifted from a scarcity defeated mindset to a winning abundant mindset, right?
Yeah,
So, but it's an ongoing practice. It's not something like, okay, I no longer have limiting beliefs. I no longer have, self-sabotaging thoughts, because when you are starting something new or trying something new, it triggers
yeah,
those thoughts, and all of 2024, I was open to trying new things. And those thoughts, limiting beliefs constantly kept running through my mind, right? And I had to remind myself, no, I'm in a different space of comfort. Whenever you're leading out of your comfort zone or try to leave your comfort zone, it's like, okay, all those feelings come, but then
yeah,
nothing grows out of your comfort zone. So a
yeah.
question that I have for you is um, why is elevating your mindset or shifting your mindset so important when you are on a season of transition?
Yeah. So, because where your mind has been is why you are in the season, right?
Mm,
So every path that you have walked on is based on your mindset. Full stop, right? So there are sure influence around us, whether it is society, whether it is our upbringing, whether it's cultural, whatever it is, there are always programs that are being fed to us. And if we buy into the program, that sets us off on a specific path, right? And that's why we all have different paths, different journeys, because our mindsets are different, our beliefs are different, right? And so it's important to change your mindset, because if you want to do anything different, you must start by thinking something different. And
mm,
that might get repetitive tonight, but you have to think something different. And before you think something different, I do this with people, you have to interrogate your beliefs. So just like you said, you had a scarcity mindset. So we would have to unpack that. Well, where did that come from? And when I say scarcity mindset, what does that sound like? What does
mm,
that sound like in your conversations? What does that sound like when, bills are due or you got things coming up? Like, what is the dialogue that is happening internally and externally, right? And if you evaluate your own, even even your own words, right? Because whatever you're thinking influences the words that you're saying. So if you evaluate your conversations from a very objective, observant place, you'll start to see the pattern. Oh, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Oh, every time I get some money, it seems like it's always gone. And it will be if you keep if you keep that dialogue up, right? If you believe that, you actually create the scenarios for those things to happen. There's something called the law of attraction, right? So whatever you are sending out, it wants to match whatever you are sending out. So if it's I'm abundant, I'm grateful, I receive love everywhere that I go, right? Even if I don't have the answer right now, I know that the answer is coming to me, right? If I get quiet enough, if you sit in that posture, for example, that means you are just in expectation for those things to come to you. But what we don't realize is when we're saying, ain't nothing going right, oh my God, I'm so tired of all of this, I don't know what the next move is going to be, like nothing seems to go right for me, like that wants to match you too, right? So you are actually expectant of those things that you are saying. But we don't think about it like that when we are quote unquote complaining. We only think about that when we're in a positive space. But that's not how math and science works, right? If A plus B equals C, then A plus B is always going to equal C, right? And it just depends on the variables that you put inside of there. So we have to be extremely mindful about what we're thinking. And I love that you said, listen, it's not a magic pill. This ain't no one-off. This ain't no bippity boppity boo and we done. It's not that at all. So I hear people when we talk about, doing some internal work, they talk about it's your work. It's literally a constant, consistent, like thing that you must do every single day. I find myself checking myself in conversations with my husband, with my son, with people at work. Like I am always trying to understand, like, okay, well, why'd you respond like that? Why did you get anxious when you were having this meeting? What is it that you believe about this? Right? What do you believe about the other person? And then the next step in that is that true? What evidence, what facts, what tangible things can you hold up against it and say yes? And even if it is true, what you're saying, what are you deciding to do about that? And so we always have the power to do something. It may not be all of the things that need to be fixed, but at the heart and the core of the matter, we have the ability to shift our perspective. We have the ability to surrender and say, you know what, this is a trouble area for me and I really need help in this space. Guide me to my help, guide me to the thing that I need that's going to help me really change this course of thought, because this is a really hard space for me. And in transition season, it is best to be honest with yourself. If you cannot be honest with yourself, if you cannot be accountable, if you cannot be responsible for your stuff, don't expect change. don't expect this wonderful change that's going to happen, because I realized for myself that until I became able and willing to look myself in the mirror and say, nope, no, that's bad behavior. Nope, you need to go back and apologize. Nope, why are you having a tantrum about that? Why are you treating a person like that? Right? We have to be able to call our own selves to the carpet and do something about it. Right? And take the next step. Go ahead, cry a little bit, but rectify that thing and put steps in place. Okay, so the next time I do that and I feel this emotion come up, okay, what am I going to do? All right, I'm gonna take 5 seconds before I respond. I'm not saying you're gonna get it every time. I'm saying when you put the reminders in front of you, when you begin to reframe what's happening, it will help you make that second nature. So,
Wow, you just shared a whole lot, and I just love how you just explained as far as unpacking and asking yourself those questions.
yeah,
So often it's like, we kind of have like a mentality like blaming, finding somebody that we can put the blame on, but using those tools and strategies that you just shared with us to unpack and really come up with the root of the issue. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's hard to sit in those critical thinking questions, right? Because what you just shared, those are critical thinking questions that we may not necessarily have the answer for right then and then at that moment, but having that moment to just reflect. I'm a very reflective person. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if somebody was to ask me those questions, it's like, I probably was just shrug my shoulders and say, I don't know. But then
Mm-hmm.
when that situation happens again, because it is going to happen again, and it may not, sometimes it may even be that same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what could I do differently if that situation was to come? You know,
Yeah.
so some of you may have known on my social media page that in my transition season, one of the biggest ones was transitioning careers. So I was a teacher for 15 years, and out of those 15 years, I was a special education teacher, and I was dealing with a lot of children, but specifically boys. And that's this topic for another day, but they would get labeled because of behavior. They would get labeled with, diagnosis that I didn't, necessarily believe in, but as a whole, that's what they were given. And I was like, I don't have any issues with those, the children in my classroom, because I would sit with them, I would help them like really come up with like, okay, why did you do this, X, Y, and Z, and what can you do the next time? So it's like, if I could do that with children, why was it so hard for me to do it with myself? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think you pretty much had talked about it already, but like, when did you know, if you can like elaborate, like, when did you know it was time to renew your mindset or to shift your mindset? When did you know in your journey that it was time to change?
So let's talk about most recent journey, because there's been a lot
Okay.
of transitions. Most recent journey will probably be December 2022, when I needed to go to emergency psychiatric care. Like, my mind was spinning. I felt like everything was falling apart. Um, I felt like I couldn't function, like I couldn't hold like thoughts together at all. I was just like, I don't know what a nervous breakdown feels like, but that's what I felt like I was having. So I felt like just completely in shambles. And literally, my mom took me there. And I remember saying to her, like, because I had to wait, I was like, I can see why people will walk out of here, right? Because I've already gotten to the place where I've gotten out of the house, I've gotten in the car, I've got here. Now I gotta sit like and wait. And I'm not just like seen in a very emergency type fashion. Um, but thankfully there was a beautiful person that was there who saw me. And as she listened to me talk about all of the things that I had been going over in my mind, things that I didn't do the greatest in, people that I had hurt before by my actions, or, withholding information, or all kinds of stuff. And then she just looked at me, she asked me a few more questions, and she looked at me and she said, "Why are you killing yourself? Why?" She was like, "Your marriage looks good. Your husband loves you. This looks good. Like, y'all still doing big things, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "I need you to stop it. I need you to stop it now." And I was like, in that moment, to someone looking from the outside, they probably be like, if they were really close to me, they'd probably be like, "Oh, but she's really going through it. Like, give her something, blah, blah, blah." No, she looked at me, she heard what I said, and she said, "You need to stop it." And sometimes we need somebody to look at us in the face and be like, "No, that's you. You keep dwelling on these things. You keep bringing past things into right now. Are these things happening right now? Are they actually happening? Not, is the thought still coming up? Are they actually physically materializing right now?" And if the answer is no, that means whatever you are holding on to and whatever I was holding on to, I brought into the present. I brought it. An event happened when I was 5. An event happened when I was 21, right? I'm 40. And at that time, I was 38. That wasn't happening now. It wasn't, right? And so sometimes, like you talked about with the labels and the diagnoses, sometimes we get so comforted by diagnosis that we use it for crutches instead of digging to the root cause, right? It's not to say that for everyone it's like that, but many times we're like, well, that's just, how many times have we heard, well, that's just how I am, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. Okay, but where did that come from? And where did that start? And what's your thought process around it? And what's your belief about it? So when she told me, you need to stop it now, literally, it was like something lifted off my shoulders. And I was like, dang, all this time, it was me? It was me? Like, I'm focused on all of these things. I'm causing these different spirals to happen because it's in my thought process. And as I said earlier, we are in control of our thoughts. Even if you have a thought and you're like, oh, that came out of nowhere. We have the ability to choose if we continue the thought, if we dig deeper into the thought, if we sit in the thought, or if we allow it to pass by. Like in meditation, they say, notice. Notice what's happening. They ain't say unpack it. They ain't say write your whole grocery list because it came up in your mind. They said, let it pass by. You can get back to it later if that's what you want to do. But just let it pass by. Just notice that it came up. Okay, thank you. Right? And so it was in that moment, coming to that moment, also going through just financial ruin, like trying to build businesses, trying to stay up in the family, accruing a whole bunch of debt. Like all of these things were just like right here. And it's just like all I kept feeling was like, it's my fault. Like it's all gonna fall apart. Like, yes, there are people who are benefiting from some of this stuff, but I don't feel like I'm benefiting. I feel like burnout. I feel like I'm crashing and burning. I feel like I'm dying on the inside. And so it was that moment that really told me, okay, you have to do something different. You got to do something different, sis. And it's not point around and see what somebody else needs to do different. Nope, start with you. So she talked to me when she said, stop killing yourself. And she meant that. And I needed to hear that. And so from that moment, like I came home and my husband and I were still talking about some things. And I was like, listen, I understand where we are at this moment, but I can't stay there. I can't stay there. I need to make sure that if I'm gonna go through all of this, I'm gonna get something out of it. I'm gonna need something out of this. I need to be able to completely unpack myself, completely go through self-discovery, and help other people do the same thing. It don't gotta look like mine. But if there are steps and processes that we can follow, that we can really examine our thoughts, examine our behaviors, examine our lives, and we can get ourselves out of ruts more quickly, fine. And I think that was the biggest, it's really the biggest blessing for me, to be honest with you. I didn't like the way it felt in the moment, but it transformed the way that I do life.
Wow. And I'm just going to let that sit for a moment because you did share a whole lot. And thank you. I want to start off by saying thank you so much for your transparency to share. And we need individuals, whether it's professional help or somebody in our community, to call us out on our shit when it's happening, right?
Period.
And we don't need people to just like continue to feed into us, you know what I mean? Like if we have like a habit, you know what I mean, that they see, or maybe they may not necessarily see it, but to be able to just like sit and evaluate and examine what is happening in our individual lives, right?
Yeah.
Because I can resonate with what you're sharing, because for years, I was holding on to these limiting beliefs, right? And as I was reflecting and thinking about our theme today, our topic, I was like, dang, let me rest in peace for all the opportunities that I lost because of my
Mm,
limiting mindset, because I felt like I wasn't enough, because I felt like I was a failure. I'm putting all my money and time into this and I'm not going
yeah,
to get anything out of it, right? But it's
yeah.
like, where do those thoughts come from? Why am I thinking that way? And why do I continuously think that way? So it's like, okay, I didn't have anyone to check me, but it's like, okay, my spirit immediately was like, okay, think about it, pause and breathe,
Yep.
reflect, and see what you can do in that moment. And I loved how you just shared how it doesn't feel like it at that moment, but it is a blessing. You know what I mean? A blessing in disguise. How
Hmm.
when we're going through situations that feel like everything is falling apart, and quite honestly, it probably is at that moment, but something's going to come out of it. It may not be necessarily this year, next year, but somebody's going to benefit from your story because it is impactful. And I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of times when people are going through things, they don't feel like they have the space to share. So I just love how you are able to hold space and start with you by holding space for yourself and your journey first, right? And letting the journey teach you something. Like, what is it? And that's something that we talked about last week for those that were on. It's like, let the journey teach you what is something that is showing you in that moment. Even if you don't know the answers, it will come, especially if you're in a space where you're able to reflect on it. Because sometimes, especially when resting, it's like for in the Black community, how can we rest? Our mind is constantly going, right? So how can we rest? And when I was thinking about the topic, surrender to rest, put your mind at ease. We don't have to figure it all out in one day. It's not an overnight fix. It's not
Yeah.
one time read an affirmation and then pray and meditate one time and then bam, I'm good to go. Like it's constantly
Yes.
renewing the mind is a constant practice. And
Yeah.
I just really grateful for you sharing and being transparent about your journey and
Yeah.
having support of your husband and others in your community to let you know, hey, things are not working, but we're going to try to make something better out of the
Yeah.
situation, right?
Yeah.
So how has your journey inspired you with your purpose?
Mm. I love this question because if you would have asked me, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, probably around the time where I started the journey of writing Dear Black Men, didn't know I was writing it at first, but I think I thought that was like a part of my purpose, right? And which I feel like was very clear, like, yes, this is a need. This needs to come out, right? So Dear Black Women and Dear Black Men came out. But the journey of like consistently getting it in front of people, right? Like all of the entrepreneurial things that came in, I think there was so much noise in the midst of purpose. Right? And sometimes it's like just get it out. Just get it out and let it breathe and not put everybody else's opinions on it, everybody else's guidance on it. I've learned inside of this season that purpose is personal, and it may not need 5 more hands for the guidance portion, right? I'm really big on listening to spirit and being guided by my intuition. And I think for a little while that was really cloudy because I was like, oh, I can, kind of force things to happen. Yep, I can do this. I can work towards this. I can do all of this. But I remember a day where like sales weren't, so sales started like tanking maybe like 2 years ago. We would have like hundreds of books bought a month, right? And it was great, one, that many people were being able to experience the books, and that we were getting feedback on books, and then two, also that it was a substantial part of our income at the time. But as that started to tank, I found myself worrying more about income right? And not necessarily align with like how much impact it made, right? And so as my mind started going there, I stopped enjoying the process. I stopped enjoying vending. I stopped enjoying like having all of these conversations. And after a while, I was like, I put everything down. I put going out and selling books down. I put photography down. I did all of the stuff like Reiki. I put it all down. And I remember talking to my husband as we were walking one day, and I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I am all out of options. I have done everything that in my mind, I'm like, oh, we could do this or we could do that. Or maybe if we do this, this could be better. I was like, I'm just going to stop and listen to spirit. Because obviously that's what I need to be doing right now anyway. Like, I don't have all of the answers. Those ideas dropped into my spirit because it was time, right? And everything that I have done, probably even way back when I did a thing on Black couples called Show Your Love, right? It was right in the vein and in the flow of when Black couples were getting some more publicity, right? Black Love Doc came out later on that year. And in the same way, Dear Black Men, Dear Black Women, you began to see the trends of like mental health coming up and people having more conversations and more things, right? So I think when things come inside of our spirit and it's bothering us, those are the times to get it out, right? So that transition helped me be open to like, okay, all right, in a new marriage, I'm learning somebody new, okay? And now I have to posture myself to be observant, to listen, to hear, right? To ask, open-ended questions, to not interrogate the person, interrogate my beliefs, right? Hold space, be curious, right? So it came out all at the right time. I think what also happened was just the noise of everything else, right? And not being able to truly like center myself and know that I am well taken care of. We came to the world with all of the abundance that we need inside of us. And as like long as we stay centered, like every single thing will just come into place. And so it took me on that journey of purpose. And I think I understood when purpose wasn't the focus anymore, right? And then life just kind of got in the way, and do this as an entrepreneur got in the way. You need to do this and this, scale and grow and all of that stuff. And I remember sitting down one day talking to my husband, and I was like, I just want to be Jewel. I don't need to be Jewel the author. I don't need to be Jewel the coach. I don't need to be Jewel the speaker. I don't need to be Jewel anything else behind my name, right? I just want to be. And so as we talk about this topic about surrendered rest, like that's where that comes in. It's getting back to being, and the hell with all of this doing, right? And that does not mean don't put in the work, don't do something. What that means is be led by your being, and then the work will be easy, right? There will be guidance, direction, right? All of the pieces will begin to align and come into place as they are needed, right? And so I know I'm giving you more than what you asked for.
No, it's needed. It's necessary. Yes.
I love giving analogies about nature, right? So you were talking about before about needing to break. Maybe you need to fall apart, right? Maybe you need to go through all things. Well, we're in a season of winter right now. It don't look like nothing is alive. It looks like everything has pretty much been broken down, right? There's some evergreens out there because that's their purpose. That's the way that they're supposed to be, right? But all of those daffodils and the sunflowers and all of the, the vegetables that you could grow outside without a cover, you can't do that, right? Because the elements are going to get to it. It is the same for our lives. We have a spring, a summer, a fall, a winter, right? And so when we are going through these transitions, before we say, why am I going through this? Say, this is a part of nature and so am I. I gotta go through the changes. How do I come back stronger if I don't wither right now? Right? My ground needs to be fertilized. My environment needs to be correct so that I can come back stronger the next time, that I can be replenished the next time, that I can give of myself again the next time, right? So breaking is purposeful. Transition is purposeful. It is literally a part of the ebb and flow of life. Like I used to say all the time, like, I just want to be happy. Well, guess what? Happy is not all the time.
Right, right.
You might not have joy all the time. Right? That doesn't mean that you won't have some type of contentment. Yes, you'll have frustration and all of the range of emotions because that is a part of who you are. Right? And so when you see these fluctuations, like literally don't despair. Like ask, what can I learn from this? Where is my lesson in this? I like to say, as you are moving forward, take the lesson with you and not the pain.
Yes. Can I just repeat that? Take the lesson and not the pain. Okay. And so often, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's just like, wow, take the lesson and not the pain. So often we carry and hold on that pain, like you shared, a pain that occurred maybe at 5, 21, 30. Subconsciously,
Yeah,
we're carrying that on. We're getting older, but then it's like when something happens that triggers it, we're 5 years
yeah,
old again, we're 21 years old again because we
yeah,
haven't received the tools on how to release that during that change that occurred during that time period. Yes, it's
yes.
painful. And there's a gospel song by Tasha Cobbs called Why Me? And I don't even
Mm.
know the song, but I just love the
Mhm.
title that she says all the time. And she's like, Why
Yeah,
not me? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Why not me? And because I was built for this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
There is something that is happening that is out of my control that I don't know and I don't have the answers for it. It feels uncertain. It feels
yeah,
like everything is breaking. And maybe it is at that moment, but
yes,
the pieces are coming back together. You know what I mean? And like the losses, the separations, like it's purposeful, like how you shared. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like nothing is wasted on this journey of life. And when life is lifing, yes, we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, but then
yeah,
give yourself that time to rest, whatever
yeah.
that means. And for the ladies that's on the call, I want you to put in the chat and let us know, how do you rest? What are some activities that you do to find rest? And even if it's nothing, right? I had
Mhm,
to learn what nothing means. I had to change my language. If it's laying
mhm.
on your couch and binge watching Netflix, hey,
Yep,
that's resting because I noticed that's what my body needs right now. And on my
yeah,
journey, I had to also shift from being busy. We get so caught up in just like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm busy doing this and that. But then
mhm,
how am I being productive? How am I having time for me to just rest? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Because I honestly can relate with you when you said everything is spirit led. This idea
mhm.
was planted in my spirit. I'm at the ending of this season because I feel like there's something unknown that's getting ready to happen. But God's like, you need to share your transition season with others who may be in that beginning stages and don't know
Yeah,
where to turn. I don't know why, but it was just like a nudge. I was like, okay, let me share. And that's a stretch because Jules, and I'm an introvert. Like I don't like public speaking, but
yeah,
you told me to just like lean into it. You know what I mean? Lean into that birthing process and not so
yeah,
much in the rear view mirror of like what's behind us. Yes, those
yeah.
experiences were necessary, but let's see how we can change our perception. Okay.
Yeah. I think also, just as people are putting things in the chat, I know for myself, I remember being in a meditation, and usually before I really get deep into the meditation, I go in with a question.
Mm.
And so as I was just like, I was saying I'm unpacking. As I was being unpacked, as I was being unpacked, I I asked a question, and I can't remember the exact question, but I remember the answer was because you like hiding.
Mm.
Like, why is this so uncomfortable? Why do I feel this way? And it's like, because you like hiding. And this is not the first time that I got that answer. Many years ago, I got that answer for something else. And I think we often do not share. first of all, we often don't even say what's ailing us outside of our own mouths. Right? Depression is literally pressing down, whatever, pressing down the emotions, pressing down your feeling. It's literally pressing down. So hiding is more so about, one, not being honest with yourself, two, not wanting to come to the realization of where you actually are in this moment, right? And three, which is probably number one on most of our list a lot of times, is what will people say when they know this thing about me? And I think sometimes we hold in high regard what other people think. And I'm just going to go back to life is happening through you. This your life. This is yours, and you are responsible for it. The fun that you don't have is your responsibility. The mistakes you make are your responsibility, right? The lessons that you need to learn are your responsibility. Who cares what somebody else got to say about that? I have come to the place where I'm like, I am here to live well. And in living well, if that means that I must bare my soul, that I must tell my truths, right? That I must peel off that band-aid and show the scars and show the wounds, right? And be honest about what things are still ailing me or what things I still need to heal, then so be it. Because every time I get to share something, that means I get a bit more free. Every single time. Every single time I can say out of my mouth, yep, I've suffered with depression. Yep, I understand that the way that I was thinking and the way that I cycled my thoughts kept me down for a very long time. I understand that when I don't want to be bothered, I mean. I understand that I have to reconcile with people because of my behavior. I understand that when I don't want to be bothered, I isolate, right? And when I'm ready, I pop back up. But how does that feel to other people in close proximity to you? Those people who love you, support you, show up for you, right? And so in all of those things, the people who love me and are close to me know that about me, right? And they love me. And I do the same for them. Okay, you need your moments. All right. It's normal. But like let's not stay in the dumps. Let's not stay in the places that keep us burdened down or unhappy, making us like not wanting to really enjoy life, right?
Mhm.
This yours. Like this is yours. Period.
Period. Yes.
Period.
Hmm.
And so
And I
I
love how
am,
you, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
I was just saying, and I'm just going to take life like literally by the reins, and I'm going to allow myself to be directed and to move it in the way that it needs to move. I will not spend much more time, allowing myself or anyone else to get in the way of living well.
Yes, yes. And I just love how you said you're going to live well regardless and just be, right?
Yeah,
Because when you're going through a situation, a circumstance, a trial, an obstacle, yes, dwell on it, but don't be there for too long because it will
yeah,
keep you in that cycle of repetitive negative thinking, right?
yeah.
So I loved how the ladies, and I'm going to share out loud if that's okay, Brienne, as far as like how do you find rest? You said having a meal by yourself and taking myself out to eat. So thank you so
Mhm.
much for those that had shared in the chat and engaging with us on the conversation. Rima Rowe, you mentioned creative writing and swimming as how you've been resting lately. Amelia, resting for you includes being able to sleep in, eating healthier, giving your body what it needs.
Mm,
Absolutely. Listening
mm,
to what your body needs because your body will tell you um,
yeah,
right away, right? So like when my back in 2019, I actually went on FMLA for it was just 3 weeks, but I needed that because I didn't have
yeah,
the tools then to let me know like that my body needed rest, right? So then my mind was racing constantly, but then my body literally shut down on me, and I didn't realize it at that time, but I was suffering from chronic stress and chronic anxiety. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, something needs to change because I can't keep living like this. And when you
Mhm.
mentioned as far as like hiding, we
Yeah.
do subconsciously, like we do care about what others think.
Mhm.
It's scary to be in a vulnerable place and share. But I'm
Yeah.
now in a space where I'm learning that is freeing. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's definitely
Mhm.
free. And I'm about to be 40. So it's just
Yeah.
like a whole nother like, I don't know, decade, a chapter for me. So it's just like, whew, I feel excited. And did you feel that, or did age matter? Or did you like know that like it was just more freeing? When did you feel the freedom?
Yeah. I think it was definitely last year. I think
Okay.
probably midway last year. It was just I had accepted. I
Mm,
accepted, okay, this entrepreneurial thing is not going to work the way I thought. I'm tired. Um, and my husband had been talking to me about like, again, I'm an electrical engineer by degree. So like many years ago, he was like, well, you could just go back to work and, you could be making that guap. And, and I was like, but I don't want to do engineering. So I had to position myself to get to the place where I knew what I wanted to do and that I would go after it willingly. Right.
mm,
And so, first of all, bless his heart for his patience with me, um, because I needed it. I really needed to understand, like, okay, I'm releasing this thing. What am I going to do now? And literally, in the last month, I got a position that I have been wanting for years.
mm,
Actually, at the same company that I left, I'm back with them now as
mm,
a program manager, making the money that I want to make with a
okay.
hybrid schedule, like all of these different things that I could have never been confident enough to ask for before going
Mm,
on this entrepreneurial journey, having these breakdowns, having these transition seasons, all of those things. So, like, we say it and I hear people say it and you think it's cliche, but like, literally, your breakdown is a setup, okay?
mm,
It's a whole setup. If I can, like, this is like how I envision spirit saying it. So it's like, if I can get all of that stuff off of you, if I can make you a little lighter, if you would just let go of the baggage, you can get to the places that you want to be in,
mhm,
right?
mm,
And so literally I decided in October that I was going to apply for the position.
okay.
I reached out to two people inside of the company, told them I wanted to come back. They put in good words for me. Literally, with about a month and a week, I had an offer.
Mm, okay.
And literally this time, let's talk about confidence. The confidence that learned lessons will
Mm,
allow you to walk into rooms confidently like nothing else. I have never been in an interview process where I owned the interview. Like I already know that like my personality is really good and all of that stuff, but it was almost like I was interviewing the other people, right? I was very confident. I knew two of the people who were already in the room. Um, they asked me questions. I asked them questions. It was just beautiful dialogue, right? And I have never been so free because I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna get this position. But even if I did not, it wouldn't have mattered. One, I'm like, oh, I could do that again. I can do that again in any situation. I know who I am. That's first. I know who I am and I know who I'm not. I know what I'm not going to do at this point in life. I know what my value is. I know what I bring to the table. I know how I can elevate from this position, right? And to help this business move forward. I would have never had any of that had I not been an entrepreneur. Had I not, spearheaded all of the projects inside of my businesses, right? Had I not had breakdowns and burnouts and all of those things, had I not had all of these wonderful conversations with these beautiful people from around the country and around the world, I would have never done this. And so literally, it is a setup. just like, just know that you are not walking alone through this thing. That's it. You're not walking alone. Like literally, you are never alone. There is not one moment that you could spend, even if nobody is in your house, you are never alone. Right? Spirit is always there, always guiding, always wanting to connect. Period. And I had to be reminded of that. And I had to make sure that I was tapping into that. Not because I wanted something, but because the essence of each one of us is spirit. How are you not connected? You might ignore, but how are you not connected? Right. And so, like, that has played such a big role in where I am now and the chances that I take now and the way that I walk through life. And there are things that I still am managing, whether it's anxiety, whether it is, whatever. Like anxiety is probably the biggest one right now because I've been working on that.
Yeah.
But I am never doubting who I am. Before I probably would have been like, okay. Always playing in the background, right? Being behind the camera, not doing all of that. I found myself saying on the inside, like I need to stand in the forefront of my own life. And stop making it somebody else's responsibility to put me in a room or to invite me to something or all of that. Nah, that's not nobody else's job. Like when you show up as yourself in every space that you go into, people will know who you are when you come into the room. They'll never have to ask. They'll never have to wonder. Like your energy will just bring people to you who are supposed to be in conversation with you, in connection with you. But that does not happen until you go through your transitions. And at every transition, who knows what my next transition will be? But in every transition, we learn something new. We acquire new skills. It's like getting power-ups, like video games or something like that. That's what it feels like. So yeah, I'm extremely grateful. I'm extremely grateful for every twist, every turn, every letdown. I'm really grateful for it all.
And it really seems like you have falling in love with the process. You know what I mean? Because it's like, and congratulations. I just love how you're speaking to me right now. Like, the life lessons that we go through on the journey is all going to come together, even if we don't know at that moment, but we do have to go through that cycle. And you're 40, the other ladies on the call, I'm not sure how old you all are, but we still got room in our lives where we can continue to go, where we can continue to go forward. You know what I mean? And growth is not linear. Setbacks can be an example of growth. You know what I mean? When you're healing, and I saw this on social media, and we're getting ready to close because it is 8:00 and I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. And I thank you all for participating. But somebody has said, when I become completely healed, then I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. But healing is like an onion, in my perception. This is what I learned in 2024, that once you get to another level, it's like an onion. You have to peel back and you have to take off the additional Band-Aids and continue to work and open up those wounds to do the work. You know what I mean? To receive whatever's on the other side of you. But you do have to go through those processes. It's uncomfortable in that development stage, but it all does serve a purpose, and shifting your mindset. You know what I mean? I want us to get back on that as far as it's ongoing process, right?
Yeah.
It's not ending because, oh, I got this job or I got this promotion or I got married. Sometimes people feel like, okay, once they reach a certain level of achievement, they stop, the work stops. But it doesn't. You have to continue, you know what I mean? And continue to just show up at all times, to be consistent. I was sharing with one of my sister friends, Amelia, today about like areas that I need to work on is my posture. You know what I mean? And that's going to be ongoing, and having the discipline, even when I don't want to, I don't feel like it, like it doesn't matter what your mood is, still show up when that is in your life, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it is in your personal going to work. It's knowing, well, not anymore in Maryland, but some people still had to go to work and then have the option to stay at home. You know what I mean? So you don't feel like it, but it's like, you know what you have to do, you know? So
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I don't think we have time to go into a meditation, and that's okay. But I want us to end with a quote, scripture, or inspirational message that you can share with the ladies that's on the call today.
Yeah, so this came up earlier in the conversation. I was like, I know this question is coming, so let me keep this. um, One of my favorite is something that I came up with, and it is that what you do not reconcile, you are bound to repeat.
Say that again. Repeat that.
Yeah, what you don't reconcile, you are bound to repeat.
Mm.
So if you're not great with money, but you want 1,000,000, but you can't manage 1,000, unless you do something different, you're not going to be able to be a great steward of those things, right? If you want the best relationship in the world, but your attitude stinks and you don't know how to talk to people, and you're not accountable or responsible, like, it's going to be really challenging, right? Not that it's impossible, but know those things are going to come back up, right? So every single level is not skipped. You have to go through each level. And once you get to completion and you gain your lessons and you begin to implement your lessons, like, this is not like just gathering the lessons as you go, right? You have to implement your lessons. That's how you're really elevating, right? So the time of ignoring things, the time of hiding, the time of being comfortable, being, in the background, or playing small, or not having boundaries, or letting people walk over you, like, all that stuff, it's time out for that, for real. Especially if that's something that you complain about. Like, whatever you complain about, say, what part do I play in this? Right? So what you reconcile, you don't repeat. And just be so willing to look at yourself, to be honest with yourself, to be transparent with yourself, because that's where freedom lies. That's where living well resides.
Thank you so much, Jewel, for your words of encouragement tonight, your words of inspiration, your words of just continuing to go forward despite of the hardships and the trials. And thank you for the ladies for joining tonight and showing up for yourself, especially for the ones that have, repeated in the series and returned. So I hope that you all were able to get an impactful message tonight. And please join us next week when we talk about Praise Your Way Through. So today we talked about elevating your mindset, and Praise Your Way Through is what we're going to talk about next week. Thank you all for coming, and you all enjoy the rest of your evening and have a blessed rest of the week. Bye.
Bye.